What do you do when someone creates the perfect sports car? Easy. You make it better. Most of you can probably agree that the Porsche 911 is pretty much the perfect sports car. Right handling, pretty to look at, enough power to put a smile on your face. But perfect, it's boring. Perfect is safe. And that's exactly why these tuning shops exist. Because some people, they look at perfection, think yeah, but what if we pushed it further? Now, before you try and blow my house up, think about it for a second. No other car on earth has inspired this many obsessive shops dedicated exclusively to reimagining it. There's almost as many ways to customize a Porsche as there are flavors of Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Today, we're looking at four of them, and I mean four completely different answers to the same question. Gemballa, excess on wheels, a Rolls Royce is probably the only thing more money than these things. Singer, museum pieces of engineering strapped to an engine. Gunther Works, reimagined modern day Porsches pulled from almost a different timeline. And RWB, for the Need for Speed kids that never really grew up. Same car, four completely different obsessions. Let's start with Gemballa, and I'll tell you exactly what kind of tuning shop Gemballa was with just one name. Vanilla Ice. Exactly, that Vanilla Ice. The most celebrity I can think of. If I needed a celebrity caricature for a parody movie, Vanilla Ice would fit perfectly. And that's pretty much exactly the type of person that I would imagine behind the wheel of a Gemballa. Royalty, rap stars, people for who a car is more of a status symbol first, rather than an automobile. These weren't built for track days or canyon runs. These were built to pull up somewhere and make everyone in the room turn around. But here's the thing, before I completely bust Uwe's Gemballa's chops here, the man had some humble beginnings, and some pretty admirable ones at that. You see, he started modifying cars back in the 80s, modifying Jettas, regular Volkswagens, and through sheer obsession and hustle, he eventually built his way up to creating Porsches for Middle Eastern royalty and the aforementioned celebrities. He didn't inherit that world, he built it from the ground up and eventually got to live that life himself. Unfortunately, the story doesn't end there because somewhere along the way, Uwe got involved with the wrong people. Specifically a Czech crime boss named Radovan. The two had apparently been running a money laundering operation since the early 2000s. And here's the detail that should make your jaw drop. The cars themselves were the operation. His tuned Porsches were being stuffed with cash in the door panels and shipped across the borders. The very cars he built to impress the world's most powerful people were being used as getaway vehicles for dirty money. And when a payment went missing, Radovan reportedly told him, "You're a dead man." Uwe was then lured to South Africa under the pretense of making a business deal, but he was abducted at the airport and then never came home. The world he spent his entire career building cars for eventually swallowed him whole. And Gemballa still exists today, but under new ownership, and they're still making wild Porsches, but it's not quite the same. The new ones, they're a bit more sanitized, less of that cocaine-fueled 80s excess that made the original ones so ostentatious. Which honestly, considering what happened to the original founder, probably makes sense. My favorite shop we're going to be talking about today is Singer, and I'll tell you why. Something about them just hits different. Every single decision feels like it was made with the exact purpose of keeping everything almost OEM. It's practically the exact opposite of Gemballa. Instead of making cars that match your Chanel bag and come with coordinating champagne glasses, they make these incredible pieces of automotive art. look at some of the pictures on their website and you can practically hear a choir of angels faintly singing in the background. And I think a big part of that discerning taste comes from the founder, Rob Dickinson. This man was the lead singer of a 90s rock band called Catherine Wheel, and an actual artist. When the music stopped, he moved to LA, bought a beat up 1969 911, started modifying it for himself, and the reactions he got when driving it around California became the spark that started Singer. He didn't come from a tuning background, he came from a place of pure passion. And you can feel that obsession in every panel gap. Now, these things aren't just pretty to look at either, they're fierce. Some of them pushing 600 plus horsepower, some still air-cooled like the Porsches of old. Singer takes the vintage soul and keeps it intact while quietly making everything better underneath. But maybe the detail that tells you everything you need to know about Singer is that the name itself. Singer is named after Norbert Singer, the Porsche engineer who built the 911 GT1, the most famous 911 ever made. Dickinson named his shop after what he admired, not after himself. Compare that to Gemballa, the man who named his company after himself, and you understand everything about the differences between these two shops without having to say another word. Now, Gunther Works. These guys also have my heart, but for an entirely different reason. You see, their cars are almost pulled from a different timeline. See, back in the late 90s, Porsche stopped air cooling their 911s, which honestly peeved off a lot of purists. The soul of the car, the raw mechanical connection between driver and machine, a lot of people felt it died when Porsche switched to water cooling. Gunther Works basically said, what if it never stopped? What if it kept cooling the air-cooled 911 with everything we know now? And the result is the 400R, the air-cooled GT3 RS that Porsche never really built. Only 25 were ever made. It's like a concept car from the 90s, but real. The craftsmanship, it's even on par with Singer. These are absolute pieces of art, but where Singer looks backwards with reverence, Gunther Works looks forward with obsession, asking not what the 911 was, but what it could have been if nobody ever stopped pushing it. And finally, RWB, Rough World Concept. If Gemballa is the flashy 80s excess, Singer's the museum piece, Gunther Works is the car from a different timeline, RWB is something else entirely. RWB is that underground car culture from the early 2000s that never really died. When I see these wide body builds, I can only think of Midnight Club, street racing, underground meets. I can't picture these cars in a school drop-off line or at a grocery store parking lot. These cars only exist in the nightlife. 2 a.m., dimly lit parking lot, in some garage somewhere that nobody really knows where you're at. And it's not just me who sees it that way. Because when Need for Speed rebooted back in 2015, and they needed someone to represent underground car culture, they didn't just invent a character. They called Nakai himself. They casted him as himself, a icon of style. And because that's exactly what he is. Now some purists lose their minds over RWB because cutting into original 930s and 964s, riveting wide body fenders into classic Porsches, dude, that's some sketchy territory. But here's my take. There will always be some factory examples in museums and private collections. I mean, Magnus Walker alone owns about 50 near-mint Porsches and historic race cars. The original ones aren't going anywhere. And so what's the harm in cutting up a few of them to add to the culture? And here's something that's kind of cool about RWB. What makes it feel like it's more underground, more personal, less of a business. If you want one, you can't just order one and have, somebody come pick up your Porsche, send it off somewhere, and then you get it back 6 weeks later, completely modified. You have to know a guy, and the guy you have to know is Nakai-san himself. You see, he comes over to your garage and he works the car on himself. You see your car being transformed right in front of you. from a stock 911 to basically whatever build you had in mind. And at the end of the whole process, Nakai, he gives it a name at the end. It's its own special project. And to show how negatively it's looked upon, how taboo it is, or how taboo it's considered for purists to cut into these original Porsches, the internet recently actually took any chance they could to attack Nakai-san. Because recently, over a viral clip that appeared to show him gluing a tow hook onto a customer's cars, the comments section was filled with people taking that opportunity to, tarnish his name. People were absolutely outraged, but of course, with anything on the internet, 9 times out of 10, it's making a mountain out of a molehill. Because it turns out it was really just a temporary fix for a photo shoot. While the proper hardware was on its way, Nakai just needed to glue something on because the customer of the car just wanted to take a couple quick photos. Again, mountain out of a molehill, and then when the proper hardware showed up, Nakai just installed the proper parts, and everyone at the end of the day was happy. Customer was happy, Nakai was happy, except for the purists who unfortunately didn't get the thing they wanted the most, which was to tarnish his name. And that's RWB, controversial, polarizing, deeply personal, and completely unbothered by any of it. Because while they're mad, you're driving one of the most beautiful cars ever made. After all these cars, all these money pits built on top of something that was already perfect, it kind of makes you feel good. Think about it. We've already had the perfect sports car for over 50 years, the same basic shape, the same rear edge and stubbornness, the same DNA, and instead of leaving it alone, people just kept asking, what if we pushed it further? What if we made it ours? Because perfection isn't the end, it's a new beginning. And at the end of the day, these are just 4 people's answers to this question. A German tuner, a British rock star, a Californian engineer, a Japanese drift artist. 4 completely different people from 4 completely different worlds who all asked the same question. And who all looked at the same car and thought, yeah, but wouldn't it be cool? And what came out of it was Gemballa, Singer, Gunther Works, and RWB. Just a bunch of people who thought the 911 was great but wanted a little extra from it. And somehow that was enough to spawn some of the most interesting cars ever built. The 911 didn't need any of this. It was already perfect. But aren't you glad they did it anyways?